Hi, this is Mike Elliott, and you're watching the SECFilings TV Thought Leader Series. In this episode, we'll be talking to Mr. Jeff Fessler, a securities attorney with the law firm of Sichenzia, Friedman, Ference, a specialized boutique law firm that provides experienced professional representation for all matters involving the securities industry, as well as general corporate and litigation matters. Good afternoon, Jeff. Thanks for joining us.
Sure, no problem.
Could you give us a quick review of your background and the work of Sichenzia, Friedman, Ference to start off?
Sure. I'm a former CPA, and I've got over 20 years of experience working with small and mid-cap companies in IPOs, public offerings, M&A, securities compliance, and general corporate work. Prior to coming to SRFF in 2004, I worked in very large law firms doing the same type of work. Large law firms are very expensive, and they don't provide the hands-on experience that we do at SRFF. We're a New York-based securities boutique. We also do securities litigation, bankruptcy, and tax law.
And next, I'd like to talk about some of the options for taking a company public. So we've got, for example, an S1 versus a Form 10 versus reverse merger. What are some of the pros and cons associated with each of these options?
Sure. With an S1, you can either do an initial public offering with an underwriter, or you can do a self-registration. With an initial public offering with an underwriter, you would basically file your registration statement. Once it goes effective, the underwriter would buy the shares from you and then sell them to the public. With a self-registration, you would file the registration statement in which you're registering a certain amount of shares which are already held by stockholders, and you would go effective that way. So an underwriter is not involved. There's pros and cons with each. With the initial public offering, it's an expensive process. You have to pay the underwriter. It's going to take 3 to 5 months. And at the end of the day, there's no guarantee that they're going to be able to sell the shares. With a self-registration, no underwriters involved, but at the end of the day, there's no one there to sell the shares. Basically, they have to be sold by you. And then with a reverse merger, companies do this when they can't find an underwriter and they don't want to go through the registration process, or they want to go public very quickly. They would find what's called a public shell. They would reverse merge into the shell, and then immediately upon the merger, they are a public company. There's a few issues with that. One is that the public shell could be fairly expensive to buy, $300,000 to $400,000. Mm-hmm. A lot of investors don't like public shells. They don't like reverse mergers, so it'd be hard to find investors. And also, if you do an uplisting on NASDAQ or NYSE market, there's some stringent rules regarding reverse mergers, namely that you have to wait a year after the reverse merger to uplist, and you have to have a $4 price for 30 out of 60 trading days. And when you do a reverse merger, that could be tough to obtain, that $4 price.
And companies that trade over-the-counter markets often want to increase their exposure later down the road. What are some of the pros and cons of uplisting from the OTC markets to NASDAQ or NYSE market?
Sure. Well, the advantage to uplisting is, I think the biggest advantage is you can file an S3 registration statement once you uplist, because you're on a national exchange. What that means is you can file what's called a universal shelf and basically register a whole bunch of securities, put them on the shelf, and then when you're ready to sell them, you file a prospectus supplement to that S3, and it's a very easy process. So investors love it because they get freely tradable securities, and it's a very easy way to finance the company. Another advantage is you get more market exposure. There's more liquidity in your stock, and a lot of investors who can't buy on the OTC, who can't buy stocks on the OTC, they can buy your stock if it's on a national exchange. The disadvantages are it's more expensive on a national exchange because the fees are higher. And also there's what's called the 20% rule, which means that if you sell more than 20% of your outstanding shares at a discount, you need stockholder approval, unless it's done in a public offering. On the OTC, you don't have that issue.
And could you walk us maybe briefly through some of just the broad brush strokes of the process that an OTC company needs to go through the uplisting? Sure.
First, they should look at the listing standards, make sure they meet them at the time they're applying, or if they know they're going to do a financing, that they'll meet those standards at the time of the financing. Typically, there's three things that companies really have to look out for, and that can trip them up in an uplisting. It's the share price, it's number of stockholders, and it's also shareholders' equity. Just in broad brush strokes, you need a $4 price, you need 4 million of stockholders' equity, and you need 300 round lot holders. There could be some differences between NYSE Market and NASDAQ, but that's pretty much what it is. So basically, for the share price, you're probably going to have to do a reverse stock split and hope that your price stays above $4 a share. And for stockholders' equity, you're either going to have to do a financing and get the money into the company, or in conjunction with that, might have to convert some of your debt into equity. And then with number of shareholders, that you're gonna have to get into financing with a bank, because they can go out there to retail and get those shareholders.
And what sort of general advice do you usually give to small companies that are looking to go public for the first time?
If you've got a good product, find a bank. Do an IPO, do a public offering that's underwritten. That's the easiest way to do it. If you can't, I would stay away from the reverse merger, and I would do a self-registration. Maybe raise some money before you do the public offering, do your registration statement, and then try to get some analyst coverage and some investors into the company. That's the best way.
And Jeff, that's all the questions I had for today. Any other comments you wanted to add before we close?
No, I think we're good.
Jeff, thanks again for your insight and taking the time to join us.
All right, thank you.
We've been talking to Mr. Jeff Fessler. He's a securities attorney with the New York law firm of Sichenzia, Friedman, Ference, a specialized boutique firm that provides experienced professional representation for all matters involving the securities industry, as well as general corporate and litigation matters. Thank you for watching SEC Filings TV Thought Leader Series.